Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast. My name is Kevin McCaffrey. I'm one of the two people who host this talking about baseball and the Cubs. The other one, wouldn't you know it, is also here. It's Adam Mamawala. How are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Mamawala. I'm a Cubs fan, and I'm fully vaccinated.
Hey, I'm also fully vaccinated, which is crazy. So I don't know. To Jason Heyward, would we be allowed at the game? Because Jason Heyward, as you know, he is not vaccinated, and he said nobody should be talking about that because some fans may not be proving that they're vaccinated, even if they say they are. And he's very worried about that. While he himself is not vaccinated, Jason, we would be happy to send you our Excelsior pass in New York, a photo of the Vax card. But yeah, man, bummer of a series of vaccination rollout news with the Cubs this week.
Yeah, I didn't want to start out on a bad note because it has been, for the most part, until the past couple of days, a good past week.
Overall good, yeah.
Yeah, but it's also been complicated because there's been like good on-field stuff and not so good off-field stuff, and that makes my tiny little brain confused as a Cubs fan.
It makes my mini brain really freak the fuck out. Yeah. All right. Let's talk good stuff first, and then we'll circle back around with that.
So you and I have not done one of these in a couple weeks. When I recorded with Ken last week, we were heading into the Wednesday Darvish-Arrieta game, which somehow went in the Cubs' favor, and then that was the midst of a very nice 5-game winning streak, which I think we all felt very good about. I think Friday, the comeback against St. Louis is probably one of the games of the year, if not the game of the year. Some pretty cool moments in that game, and then I mean, it was just a good weekend overall. What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great run, and as you said, the 5-game winning streak, we were all feeling pretty good, which sounds like a default. But if you're on Twitter enough and follow us on Twitter at AwayGamesPod, and same thing on Instagram, there are people who will still complain in the midst of a 5-game win streak. But we weren't. I think it was looking really good. And I think one thing that was highlighted is one of the things that Jed Hoyer has done best, and that I think we can feel best about as a team, is just the major league quality contributing depth that we've built here. There is, I mean, if we would have killed for Wisdoms and Alcantara's and Duffy's to be on the roster in the last couple years, where it felt like we were just absolutely burning up roster spots that weren't in the starting 9. And I think so obviously so much of this team has been carried by that, and the bullpen too, obviously, which are also guys who are sort of in a different way. Not mostly it's not older veterans who were signed. They're guys coming up through the Cubs pitching infrastructure who are starting to pop now. But yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to overlook how much the Cubs are dealing with injuries right now to key players, and Chris Bryant just hit on the wrist with a pitch yesterday. Fingers crossed on that. But they've been doing great against good teams without their best 9. So I think that's great.
Right. And where are we at with that? Well, like in terms of the people who are still not back, because obviously Marisnick is back with the team. Hayward is back with the team. Do we know anything about Duffy? I feel like I've heard that Steele is still a couple weeks away from rejoining the team. I mean, he's with the team, but you know.
Right. He's traveling with them, but those hamstrings just suck. They just last forever. They linger.
Yeah. Nico as well, obviously.
Nico, similar thing to Steele. It's really weird though, because when we saw Nico's hamstring injury, we really felt it. You know, that seemed intense. That you just saw that and you were like, oh yeah, that's 2 months, no doubt. Steele, we didn't really see anything, but apparently it's pretty significant because he's still, I think from what we saw, Justin Steele's still 10 days, 2 weeks away from joining the team. Matt Duffy, I've weirdly seen nothing about. You know, that's not
because Steele. I mean, because Bodie and Nico, you both like knew immediately just based on their reactions.
Looked horrible.
That's months. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, like it's crazy that remember when like Matt Duffy was one of the main talking points. Like, this guy's great. He's been exactly what the Cubs need. He's making a ton of contact. He's knocking in sac flies over here and there, and just, you know, getting a whole bunch of singles, which was very fun to see. and he hasn't been around for weeks. And you just think about the infielders who've cycled in that we've talked about through them. Patrick Wisdom obviously is hitting the shit out of the ball. He is the rookie leader in home runs in the National League right now, one up over Carlson, I believe, of St. Louis in about 100 less at bats. And also, I'll say this for Wisdom too: the exit velocity is big. It looks like, I mean, he's not going to slug 800 for the rest of the year,
right?
But for a 29-year-old guy, I think there are intriguing physical skills to this guy, as also a former first-round pick, so he's got the pedigree. I mean, he looks, I fingers crossed, but I think he has a puncher's chance to be like an actual starting caliber baseball player here.
Yeah, and I also don't mind the exit velocity on his throws. I mean, that's something not to sleep on with Wisdom either, because he's looked I mean, he had that one ball that sailed on him over the weekend, but largely he's looked really good playing defense at third. And yeah, I mean, I think you're hoping that the basement for him is like a David Bodie type situation where he finally just gets his shot and has made enough adjustments in the minors that he's like here to stick, at least as a like rotation player. But yeah, why not? I mean, like, I feel like Patrick Wisdom is the exact kind of guy the Cardinals always have, where he like comes out of nowhere and you're like, what the fuck is a Patrick Wisdom, and why does he keep hitting home runs against us?
Yeah,
so
and
it's nice to have that on your own team for once.
And he does have that like Cardinals-esque quality of having a name that also like means other stuff. It just sounds like it sounds like a name on a fake ID, you know? Patrick Wisdom, you know, he's a knowing man. And speaking of him he's literally a former Cardinal too. He was drafted by them. And Sergio Alcantara too had his first real shit game yesterday. The first or game 2 in the Mets series right down the street from us. He struck out 4 times, which is a thing that happens. Javi struck out 3 or 4 times, I think, yesterday too.
Well, he had a Javi. He struck out a bunch of times and hit a bomb.
And provided all the offense, with a hard line drive opposite field homer. But Alcantara seems like a guy. I saw the breakdown the other day. He chases nothing. So typically speaking, he chases nothing out of the strike zone, which is a lovely quality. That is really fun to have a guy who's not getting himself out, and he's displaying a little bit of pop. You know, and it doesn't even need to be home run pop, but he's been hitting a few doubles and triples into the gaps, and he looks smooth as heck defensively at shortstop, at second, anywhere. So I think you're looking forward, and the Cubs start to have like almost 2 full infields on this roster once everyone's healthy.
Right. Well, but along those lines, now that we have people like Wisdom and Alcantara showing up, and I'm gonna try my best to not be biased, even though I am like. Explain to me how Eric Sogard fits onto this team as a baseball player, regardless of vaccination status, and explain to me why Jason Heyward is a starter right now.
I think I understand giving Heyward more rope here to sort of,
because of his contract or because of respect or any of those combinations?
I mean, I think all of it contributes. I think contract respect. I think he had a good 60 game sample last year, and he has a certain track record before that, and he's not so old that he should have completely lost it right now. But I mean, the truth is, Hayward has had stretches of being decent offensively. Last year was good, but he's just never been a particularly good offensive player in Chicago, and he's had a couple years where he was actively bad, or earlier on the earlier side of his run. I think once you get almost anyone healthy again, I think Hayward has to be fighting for a spot and can't be a full-time, no doubt, starter, because also his defense has fallen off. Like, it's the stats show it, the eye test shows it. I mean, he's not making mistakes really, but he's not getting to what he used to. So it seems like he's lost a step there. I think once this team is healthy, you're not seeing Hayward start a lot. And Ian Happ, someone who was on an MVP pace last year until he got his eye hit, he has been, his numbers still look terrible, but he has been relatively hot since mid-May. He's one of the Cubs' best offensive players overall since then. So I think that's the difference between those two. As far as Sogard, I think Sogard legitimately will be DFA'd once a couple guys are healthy. Because I just don't, if we start getting to a point where Sergio Alcantara, a 24-year-old with all these tools, who the Cubs got for nothing and could have on a contract going forward, but I believe is out of options. If we get to a point where they're waiving Sergio Alcantara to keep Eric Sogard, I just don't believe that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't. I think that would be pretty indefensible. I don't see that happening.
Right. So I think Sogard's around for now.
I mean, he got a big hit last night. It just could have driven in the game tying run, but it didn't.
But it sure didn't. Yeah. So I think there's a lot. I understand a lot of frustration we see about Eric Sogard starting as much as he is, and I don't have an answer for that. He should not be starting right now. Even if he gets, he's had a hit here and there. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves overall. So I think he's just a guy who's, he sort of benefits from that utility player, competent utility player reputation, regardless of how that tracks. And I think he's filling a spot while the Cubs are filled with injuries. But once he's gone, I mean, you're not sending Patrick Wisdom anywhere. Alcantara shouldn't go anywhere. And then we're talking Bodie, Duffy, and Horner are all going to get healthy at some point. The end of Sogard will come this summer.
I think what concerns me about Heyward is that there was so much talk when Ross became the manager about like, how will he be both like, a manager, but also navigate his friendships with these people. And that was something that we thought about and kind of joked about in terms of like, well, good luck like taking Lester out of the game when you used to be his personal catcher. And I think he handled it fine. But all that to say, Jason Heyward is somebody that David Ross is very close with. They were on that team together. He paid for David Ross to have a suite every road trip.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I do wonder sometimes, if that, and you can't know those things because Ross would never admit it. But I do wonder how much that factors in when it's like you do have a personal relationship with somebody.
Well, yeah, he wouldn't admit it, and he also might not even consciously know it. I think you think about anything you do in your own life, any one of us, just by virtue of being human, you have certain tendencies, your instincts tell you to do certain things and you don't know why necessarily, or you can't really like see yourself and your actions from a third person perspective because it's you're just human, you're affected by the feelings you have. And so I think David Ross might have more belief in Jason Heyward because he's he knows how he goes about his business. He has for so long. He knows he can trust him. He knows he's approaching the game professionally. Apparently everyone says he's the greatest teammate you can have, except for one glaring thing that we all know about now. So I mean, yeah, I think it would be hard for that not to affect him. And on the flip side, you could also say maybe that ends up positive, where a lot of people would give up on Heyward, not to steal the phrase from Taco Aficionado on Twitter, but like a lot of people might give up on him as a manager. Maybe Ross sticks with him and something starts to come back around. I don't know. I don't think a contending team should be starting Jason Heyward a lot at this point. But yeah, I think it's not shocking to see David Ross trying to get him going so hard.
Yeah, and I mean, in a scenario where the Cubs actually do make the playoffs and in a scenario where they're actually fully healthy, which both seem like big ifs, but if that is the case, it would be very interesting to see what that lineup looks like for a game one in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, remember the playoffs of 2016? Heyward wasn't starting all the time,
Soler was getting a lot of those starts.
We'd see Soler. Coughlin got a couple starts out there. I mean, it was a thing where Heyward, they tried to get him going all year, and then when the games like mattered for a 103 win team who really wasn't sweating it, had more games to burn later in the year. Then it was like, all right, we cannot start this guy, and that was when he was much younger and coming off more recent success. Right. So. Yeah,
it's just the whole thing is really tough. I feel like with Heyward and with Rizzo, just as like two people who I love as much as anybody on that 2016 team.
Right.
I don't know how you feel as a fan, but like I don't like feeling conflicted in the same way that we talked about Sarah Spain with Sarah Spain in terms of like when you know things about people, and I am not comparing not being vaccinated to a domestic abuser, obviously.
Right. What we were talking about. Yeah. That specifically, I guess that was our example with Sarah, but the point holds where you want to the players you watch, you want to feel good about watching and rooting for these
Yeah.
people.
So I don't know where I'm even going with this. I feel like kind of disappointed.
Well, yeah, I'm disappointed too. And you can say the not getting vaccinated thing is a baseball problem. It's an America problem. It's not necessarily a Cubs problem. But guys, 22 teams have reached the 85% threshold. 22. So it is a Cubs problem. The Cubs would be, so only 8 teams are not at that 85% threshold. So the Cubs basically made the playoffs of being dumbasses, like of being selfish dumbasses. And that's not everybody, but that is a number of these people. And Rizzo, look, I from what I know from hearing from doctors in my life, I have a brother who's an ER doctor in Chicago who's seen this shit pretty close and has been pretty up on it. A lot of people in my family are doctors. From what I know, it would be best for him to get the vaccine. But as a cancer survivor, I'm giving the slightest bit of I don't know specifically what his doctor told him. It's you are immunocompromised to some degree. There are people who are not supposed to get the vaccine, but that's why everyone else who can fucking needs to, because there are people who genuinely can't. And Jason Heyward, Jake Arrieta, Ryan Tepera, Eric Sogard. These are people who have no reason besides just being in denial to not do this. And I think when you mention guys who we love, like Rizzo and Hayward making this choice, I think it tells you how you get the Cubs as one of the 8 teams to not get to 85, because locker rooms are influenced by their leaders. And if you were to say the leaders in the locker room, who would you say for the Cubs?
Yeah, I mean, as position players, Rizzo and Hayward.
Exactly. So you can't tell me that those two not doing it doesn't affect other people in that clubhouse. So it's almost a viral spread of idiocy in that way. And that sucks. And I mean, there's a bunch of things that the Cubs can't do that other teams can. I mean, just weird things, including like broadcasters getting to travel on the team plane. So other teams can do that, and we still have to listen to broadcasters like looking at a TV and trying to call the game when the Cubs are on the road in that way, because the broadcasters can't travel with the team. And that's not the most important thing in the world, but I think it's embarrassing, and I think it is annoying. And most importantly, it makes them less safe. It makes them less safe. It makes America less safe. The reason this won't be the Vax podcast, but the reason why infections have gone down is because people have gotten vaccinated, and that is a thing that works. So if infections are going down, you're not vaccinated, congratulations, you're benefiting from other people doing the right thing while you do jack shit. And that's where we're at with these people now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've no further questions.
Yeah, yes, no further questions. Also, and when people are like, there's basically 100 people in the traveling party, and you need 85. So each person is roughly worth 1% of that to get to the number. So when you hear Jed Hoyer say things like, it's not one person, we're not close, that gives you a little bit of a feel. It's not like Anthony Rizzo deciding to get vaccinated would necessarily be a huge swing in that way, but whatever.
But to your point, maybe it would influence other people who are on the fence.
I think absolutely. So that was definitely the biggest bummer of the week. And if you want to see true just galaxy brain nonsense, read Jason Heyward's statement, which somehow blames fans, which is wonderful. But the actual baseball side of things has been pretty good this week, up until the Mets games, which we just went to. We both went to the Tuesday game, right?
Correct. Yeah. My winning streak is over. I believe I had been to all 7 Cubs Mets games in 18 and 19 that the Cubs went 7-0 during, and I'm sure you were at most of them, if not all. Look. When you go into a series where coming into it, The Wednesday matchup was Jacob deGrom versus TBD. You gotta win the game against Peterson. Like that's if there's anything to belabor here, it's and look, he had probably the best start of his career maybe on Monday. He looked very good.
Yeah,
against
6 innings,
Cubs.
1 hit, I think.
Yeah, and last night Cubs just didn't score. KB got hurt early, which obviously doesn't help your offense. And then a very strange, questionable send that, like, I guess makes a little more sense because Heyward is coming up. Like, if you do that ahead of Rizzo, it's truly moronic. In this case, it's just mostly moronic.
Yeah, what was your feeling on the Jake Marisnick send as we record this the day after?
I happened to be watching that from the PA booth.
Yeah.
Where Howard Cosell's grandson, Colin Cosell, is the PA announcer.
Well, I didn't know that. That's a fun fact.
It's pretty cool. So my friend Gavin, who you've met, is a friend of his. I guess he used to live in Astoria, like right by where you used to live, like by Crescent and Vine. That was like their hangout bar that Howard Cosell's grandson would hang out at that bar.
New York, baby.
Exactly.
The most New York run into shit.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But in any case, I got to go into the PA booth for the game, or for the ninth inning of the game. So I had a great vantage point, like sitting behind home plate. And I was looking into the outfield, and then as the ball came in, it was almost like when you see like Wilson come around on that crazy Javi play. Like I almost didn't realize Marisnick was coming around until it was too late, and then I was like, "Oh my God, he's gonna be out by 40 feet." Like I don't even think he was. Was he even at third when Pilar had the ball in his hand?
No, and you and I were watching from almost the same angle. We were like probably 100 feet from each other without knowing it. I was directly behind home plate in front of the SNY booth. Is where my seats were. We were right in front of Keith Hernandez, and yeah, and Jake Marisnick was halfway between second and third as the ball was in Kevin Pillar's glove. Kevin Pillar, you wouldn't say has an 80 grade arm, but he's an extremely good defender. That's why he has a job in Major League.
As is Luis Guillorme.
As is Luis Guillorme. And Guillorme does have a strong arm. And Pilar got the ball in very quickly. I mean, I think the ball was to the infield before Marisnick was past third. I mean, it was just in my opinion, insanely bad send. You could really see where we were sitting behind home plate, seeing everything all at once, as the third base coach does. There was no shot on this. Usain Bolt wasn't getting home before the throw from that position. And yes, Jason Heyward's up next. That makes you less confident. But the only thing that Jason Heyward does offensively at an above average level is make some kind of contact with the ball. You know, and if you hold Marisnick there at third, you have runners at the corners with 1 out. And it's a case where one of Jason Heyward's vaunted grounders might be a case where he can beat out a double play, you know? And
they probably play the infield in at that point, right? And then you're probably getting a ground ball to the right side that it gets thrown home. But in any case, give him the chance.
I mean, Jason Heyward does hit the ball hard at the ground a lot. It's when the infield comes in, it's a lot easier to get it through the right side. I think you want a guy up in that situation with a runner on third and less than 2 outs who makes contact. And Heyward sucks offensively. Not saying he doesn't, but he does make contact. So, and he's in your major league lineup. And so I just felt like that was giving away an out. And Ross said he had no problem with it. He likes to.
I mean, with 2 outs, it's a clear send.
I'm much more fine with it with 2 outs. Yeah, it almost reminds me of the was it 2014 World Series? Was it the Giants Royals, or no, 2015? Excuse me.
Well, do you mean the Eric Hosmer send against the Mets?
No, no. Okay, 20. I'm talking.
Oh, I know what you mean. The Alex Gordon triple.
Yes. So that's so that's 2014, I guess. But when they ended up sending or not sending him, they held him, and then Perez, I think, made the final out of the World Series. Then, especially against a dominant Madison Bumgarner, I would have been fine with that send, even though it looked like the ball would beat him.
That also would have been a wildly dramatic end to a World Series that would have been so fun.
Just for entertainment purposes, that would have been great. But yeah, I thought it was a nonsense send yesterday. And it's and same thing as you said, watching it happen in real time, I was like, is he trying to draw the throw to get Sogard to second and then get back? I just did not believe at any moment until he was out that they were actually sending him.
And I'm usually of the school of thought that it's like, if it truly does take two perfect throws to get somebody, I'm okay with the send. That was not one of those situations, because if you look at where Marisnik was when McCann caught that ball, it could have been way to the other. As long as it was in a range that he could have caught it, could have been high, could have been low, could have been to the right side. Like, he was still going to tag Marisnik out. Now, it just so happened that it was a perfect throw, so it looked even worse. But yeah, that was not ideal. Very cool to be in the PA booth, by the way. And also, I was in the M&M section, which is like that. It's in the outfield, like between where the old wall was and the new wall is. It's like that little section, but there's free beer until the seventh inning. So
Whoa, free
that's
beer!
That's why my voice does not sound great.
Damn.
Yeah. So Gavin's roommate works for the Mets, so he was able to pull a few strings. But yeah, so going up in the press box was very cool, and just mainly because without canceling anyone, it's very interesting to see the behind the scenes of, like, the job of a PA announcer is really just to announce who is coming into the game or who's exiting the game, but there's a lot of downtime during which you can just talk about whatever you want. So there were a couple other people up there, and it was very funny to hear him, like, bullshitting. And then as soon as it's time to, like, introduce someone, he just goes into, next up for the Cubs, Jake Marisnik. And then it's back to just, like, talking like you and I would talk.
Right.
So it was pretty cool. Yeah. It would be a very obscure guest to have on, but I would have the grandson of Howard Cosell on the podcast. Why not?
Absolutely.
Seems like an interesting guy.
Yeah, totally. It's I mean, what an interesting job to have too. You know, it's just you go see games for free, talk into a microphone a little bit, and you're good to go.
Sounds great. You were there with your dad, right?
I was there, yeah, with my dad. It was my birthday, and my dad and I usually my dad lives in New York, so one of our sort of normal hangouts will be go to a Cubs Mets game when they're in town. And since it happened to be on my birthday, on the actual birthday this year, we did that, kind of a double
Pete Alonso led the crowd in happy birthday for you after the game, which was very nice.
Yes, for me, definitely not Dom Smith. Interesting. I was happy to add to my brain a new birthday buddy in baseball, Dom Smith.
I like Dom Smith.
Dom Smith's cool. He's a cool guy. That adds to our old friend Dusty Baker is a June 15th. Completely overmatched head of the Players Association, Tony Clark, is a June 15th. Bunt expert Brett, don't call me Butler, he's a June 15th, and notorious drunk and chicken eater Wade Boggs. So those are my June 15th boys. And as when
you said notorious drunk, I thought you were going to say Tony La Russa, and I was really going to feel for you.
Yes, notorious drunk Tony La Russa, and notorious drunk myself. Yeah, and now it's June 16th. Happy birthday, Kerry Wood. Good baseball.
Nice. Now you are going to the game tonight and tomorrow, correct?
Yes, tonight I'm going with a friend of mine who's a Mets season ticket holder, a guy named Jeff Locke, who's actually a very good screenwriter, and he's an old college friend who normally we hang out. We go to New Jersey to gamble on golf, is normally how we hang out, but he's got Mets season tickets, section 103. We're going to head down there, and yeah, I'll be there tonight.
That sounds fabulous. And do you feel Robert's stock is rising?
Ooh, I do. Bob Stock is ready to fuck some shit up tonight. You are going to the game as well?
I'm going to the game the next couple nights. Major League debut versus current best pitcher in the world. Never a great matchup, but we'll see what happens.
But let me tell you something that's real exciting about this. We have not seen, unless you have, I've not seen the roster move that needed to be made for Robert Stock to come onto the 40-man. So the Cubs have to make some sort of move there. But Robert Stock, by all accounts, is a cool guy. He's a good Twitter follow. He's a thoughtful guy, funny dude with a good sense of humor. And he, at one point, like Sports Illustrated did an article on him. I think it was right after Bryce Harper, either right after or before. But as a youth player, he was thought to be the number one player in the world at one point. And I believe he was a catcher back then, a power hitting catcher. And then when that sort of didn't work, he was transitioned to a relief pitcher. He is up to 102. And he's been throwing a slider in the low 90s, which sounds a lot like Jacob deGrom as a profile. And in Iowa recently, they've been having him go 4 innings. So he's been stretched out for the first time, and he's not to like what you would consider full starters innings. But I mean, if we can have some sort of weird power opener in Robert Stock, it would be really cool. And Adam, you and I tonight and everyone watching might see what is literally the matchup of the two, technically speaking, hardest throwing starters by combination in Major League history.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about two guys both touching 102 in the same inning, has that happened before?
In the first inning, I have to think probably not, right? Because I mean,
maybe in the 9th if you got Chapman versus someone who throws really hard.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Chapman, Jordan Hicks, if they were somehow facing each other, you could have something like that. But as far as starters go, we're going to see just almost unprecedented heat in the early innings, which is cool. And I mean, I don't know, how do you feel going to the deGrom start tonight?
I feel lucky to see him as a baseball fan anytime I see him.
Same.
It's like if the Cubs get shut out, let's say he threw a perfect game, would I love seeing the Cubs not get on base? No, but I would know that I was witnessing something that's really important. And it's the same way that I got to see Michael Jordan play one time. I got to see Kobe play one time. I've seen LeBron play one time. It's like there are people that you should see play if you are a baseball fan. And what deGrom is doing is borderline impossible. I mean, he's driven in more runs than he's allowed this year. His ERA is 0.56. This is as good of a sustained run of pitching as we've seen in our lifetimes since, I don't know, Clemens at some point, Pedro Martinez. I mean, what are we even comparing him to?
Right, since Jake Arrieta, probably.
And even that was for like 1 year, basically.
Yeah, that was for like one. Yeah, as far depending on how long we're talking about, how it covers. Jake Arrieta had that historic, magical. Like, I mean, this is basically deGrom striking out more people, but otherwise the numbers are similar to second half of 15 Arrieta, basically. Yeah. But also it's all the numbers he's bringing. It's also the stuff is unprecedented. So it's probably like Pedro-ish, right? Like peak Pedro-ish, except I mean on the verge of better. Like we are seeing what might be the single best pitcher in a moment that has existed in our lifetimes, which is crazy. And I feel the same way. Like on the train coming back last night, there was a Mets fan who was like, "You going tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yep." And he was like, "Are you sure you want to? It's deGrom." And I was like, "Here's the thing: if you lose to deGrom, there's no shame in that. No shame. Yeah. Exactly. I'm fine with that. You get to see something exciting, and Bob Stock is a fun story, and I'm excited to see him, even just from like a scouting perspective. So I think tonight, I'm not banking on a win here. Like it's just it'll be fun to see. And then tomorrow,
Hendrik Stroman is fun. Yeah.
Hendrik Stroman is pretty evenly matched, fun. Stroman is very high up on the list of guys I wanted and still want for the Cubs. Before he accepted the qualifying offer, he was the number 1 pitcher I wanted this offseason. And Stroman's really fun, but that should be an even matchup. And the Cubs need to win that. Let's not get swept in a 4-game thing. But if you go 1-3 in New York and you're facing the pitchers you're facing with all the injuries you're having, that's a win. You still win the season series.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. And you and I have been to 4-game series that the Cubs have been swept in Citi Field. It's not fun getting swept in general, especially not in New York. But yeah, I mean, I am. There is a very small part of me that expects the Cubs to win tonight, but stranger things have happened because it's baseball after all. And I'm in the same boat. I'm looking forward to seeing the best pitcher alive, even if it's making the Cubs look foolish. And yeah. I'm sure KB, even if he's ready to go, is like, you know what? Tomorrow seems good.
Yeah, one more day. Let's let Pat Wisdom ride that hot streak off him. And deGrom is coming off a game where he had to leave after 80 pitches and 6 innings, 1 hit, double-digit strikeouts. So, like, you know, he might not be at 100%. And also, what people forget is the Mets haven't scored any runs for deGrom unless he's doing it himself. So you can't win a game 0-0. And Yeah, there is part of me that also is just like, watch the Cubs only beat DeGrom this this series, but it'll be cool to see, and we will be there in person doing everything we possibly can to try to bring at least one win to this series.
You got anything else?
I don't. That's it. I feel like you guys should follow us on Twitter at Away Games Pod, on Instagram at Away Games Pod. And
that's true. We got some fun takes. The only illegal substances we use have nothing to do with our pitching, and
nothing to do with it's nothing to do with pitching. We're not mixing it with sunscreen. We're just wearing sunscreen as you're supposed to. Yeah, that's it for us this week. Thanks for listening, everybody.